Everybody, I was excited to get to this week right here. I feel like it's been a long time to get here since spring practice. So, but just excited to finally get to game week. I'm really proud of our guys of how they've handled the virus aspect of things, and we've gone a long time. I can't exactly remember how many weeks it's been since we haven't had any positives. So that's been really good for us, now. And now once this season has started, the week started now, we got some different protocols within the ACC that we're going, including testing 3 times this week. The first time was already this morning. So, and then I think our guys, you can just kind of sense over the last week and a half, really the end of last week, kind of really focusing in on game time is getting here very, very soon. So, really good practice yesterday. Today's their day off, and then we'll really get after the rest of this week. So amped about it. Can't wait to get going and Saturday night.
All right, we'll open it up for questions for Satterfield.
Russ Brown from Kentucky today. If you expect anybody to miss the game either for injury or illness or anything?
Well, we do not.
Scott, you mentioned how well the team is doing. This Cameron Punter is running by the way. You mentioned how well the team is doing with dealing with the virus. And you see other schools. I think Tennessee had 44 players out of practice one day. Auburn had an outbreak. When you guys go through the summer and you prepare for a season, do you think about things like that in terms of how much depth you'll need if some guys do get sick?
Yeah, we obviously have thought about it. We're trying to, and we really. What we've done this fall has not been any much different than what we've done in the past. You're trying to get minimum of 2 deep ready. In some cases, 3 deep ready at some positions. We've like for example, Jack's played safety and he's played outside linebacker for us. So we've kind of cross trained some guys to be able to play multiple positions in case something does happen. But for the most part for us, it's been primarily the same. Once if any adversity hits, as far as a guy can't play for whether it be injury or contact tracing or he's positive on the virus, then you will have to adjust at that point in time. Obviously it makes it a little bit more difficult if it happens closer to the game, and so that would be challenging to say the least. But we recognize, know that is a possibility. So we've tried to train enough guys to where we would still have enough guys to go out and play.
Hey, Coach Cameron from Cardinal Authority. As you guys do begin or have started preparing for Western Kentucky, they've got a new quarterback behind there, the Maryland transfer. What do you expect to see from them this year? What are you guys preparing for? Well,
you really don't know what the chemistry of a team's going to be when you come back to a new season. In first games, a lot of times there could be some things that are different. Obviously they did an outstanding job last year, won 9 games. They do have a veteran team coming back. I know you mentioned new quarterback, but as you look at their team, I think really on both sides of the ball, a lot of guys that have played a lot of football games, and particularly I look at defense. They got 10 seniors. As we got penciled in as starters, and that's phenomenal. And then the other guys are juniors. So it's a very veteran team. And I think when you look at what all has happened over the off season, where you didn't get much spring practice, you missed some time in the summer and all those things. Well, when you have a veteran team, you're able to overcome those things. And so I feel like WKU is that kind of team, and I think their coaching staff has done an outstanding job there. And we know they're going to come in here and have a really, really good football team. And, they beat Arkansas last year and had a big bowl win last year. They're a very, very good football team.
Scott Rodgers, WDRB. Looking at your own team as you get into the opener, what are the number 1 or 2 questions you have about your guys?
Well, I think, as I talked about WKU, I feel like we're kind of in the same boat with that as well. We have a lot of experience coming back. When you look at offense, we did lose a couple of offensive linemen, and both of those guys are good players. They're both in the NFL right now with Haycraft and Becton. So, But I feel like, we got Boone that started 3 games for us last year, and you got Renato Brown, who's really come on strong. I mean, so obviously question mark will be offensive line. I think when you look at offense, and we got so many skill guys back, all our tight ends are back, our wide receivers are back, our running backs, our quarterbacks. I mean, we have everybody back from last year. So there's not as much question as you start looking at the skill on that side. And then on the other side of the ball, defensively, there's a lot of production back on there. Our 2 leaders our 2 inside backers with Etheridge and C.J. Avery. I mean, great leaders for us and really good football players. The safeties, the corners, the whole defensive backfield's back. I mean, Rajay is an outside linebacker. I mean, we have most of our same guys that are back. So, I guess probably as you look at an overall team, the biggest question mark will be in the kicking game. We'll be trotting out a new kicker and a new punter. So those will be the biggest question marks because you never know how their guys going to react, when the lights come on. And, we obviously been working hard at it. So hopefully those guys will perform well. But I would say that's the biggest question mark when you look at our team in a whole approach.
Coach, Tim Sullivan from the Courier-Journal. You referenced guys cross-training, and I'm wondering, given the possibility that you may lose players unexpectedly, are you cutting back on your playbook, scaling it back at all, just knowing that you may have to put some people in who don't have the experience that your starters do?
Well, no, we really haven't, Tim. We've kind of gone, I think we're much more advanced the start of this season compared to the start of last season, because we do have so many guys that are back that we were able to, pick up where we left off last year and then also build upon that. Now, to your point, if that does happen, then, now you're going to have to watch what you call, on offense and defense. I mean, so at that point, we probably wouldn't do as much that maybe we've worked on. If you got guys that are out there that don't have the same experience, that maybe don't know and understand exactly what we're doing because they don't have much playing time. And so, that would be the case. But I think for us, we're really pleased with where we are as far as, the amount of things that we have in, particularly going into the first week.
Can you give us a sense for how much more sophisticated maybe it is than it was this time of year ago?
Well, I think it's kind of hard to give you a sense. I guess you can kind of look at last year if you start at the beginning of the season and kind of see where we ended up in the bowl game. We were a different football team by the end of the year, and I think because the guys were comfortable in what we were asking them to do, they understood their roles. And so when you get that way, there's just a confidence level. You just look at Cunningham, how he grew throughout the whole season last year. By the end of the year, had a much better, confident level about what we were trying to do. So, start that as kind of your base, and then you kind of build off of that. And I think we're in a much better place. I mean, we're not starting from square zero. We're already advanced in what we're doing, and we have a good idea of what we're doing. Here's another example too. Is so we can go back and reference things that we did last year. As we head into this season, because we can say, hey, remember what we did in, Florida State game? And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, coach, we got you. Whereas last year, you're just going into the season. There's nothing to reference. We hadn't done anything yet. So I think that's probably a big difference for our team this year. We'll be able to base off our experience of all of us being together as coaches and players. We'll pull off of that experience that we did in the past, and that should help us propel in this future.
Thank you.
Coach
Scott
Hayes,
Gary
from AP, how much has the hybrid course format for school really kind of helped your players and keeping the rates down?
Well, I think it probably has helped, no question. I would say a lot of our guys, even last year, were kind of online, maybe 50-50 on our team. There was, some of the guys were a lot of online classes, and, we didn't have as many that was actually in class, so we were kind of in that mode anyway. So now this year, when you've gone to a lot of online classes, and it certainly helped our guys. I think our living situation has helped our guys. In our dorm situation, most of our guys have their own rooms within a suite and their own bathrooms, and so you kind of can be isolated within that same respect. And I think that's why kind of how we've benefited, throughout the last 2-3 months because of our living situations. and the fact that, we really have, our guys really haven't gotten out into the public and done a whole lot of things. I mean, they've done a great job of knowing that they want to be able to play, and so they haven't put themselves in those situations.
Scott, hey, it's Jody Dillon with CardinalSporty.com. When you get to this point of the season, you've been through all the testing and everything. Do you change anything up as far as like for example with the quarterback room? You don't want the quarterback room to get wiped out. So do you keep those guys away from each other when they're not in there and keep doing Zoom meetings and things like that to be proactive and protective?
Well, we really haven't had to be change anything. We've been meeting in person. So because the way we're meeting, we're masking and our guys are spreading out. They're outside of 6 feet. We have had to change some meeting rooms that we've used, throughout the last 6 weeks or whatever we have for practice. So the way we meet, so that there wouldn't be any contact tracing with our guys, just kind of the way we've been meeting. And so we've done some different things with that. Our team meetings, we're utilizing several different rooms for our team meetings, so we're all not in there together. So, I mean, we've been doing all those things throughout the whole summer with that, in that regard. So we feel pretty good about the plan that we've put into place. I mean, again, I've mentioned Matt Summers and Coach Mike and everybody else involved here. UofL, our medical team. I mean, there's been great dialogue and conversation of how we need to go about these things, and I think that's why we've been in be able to handle and be in really, really good shape. Now, we all know that if one or two of our guys somehow got contacted with that virus and somehow got into the bubble here, and then we would have some issues. And I can see how some of the teams have had that happen. We've been fortunate that it hasn't. And, we obviously got our fingers crossed and hope it stays like this throughout the rest of the season.
Coach Russ Brown again. What defense obviously has to improve over last season. Number one, do you think it will, and what has to happen for that to happen, the defense to improve?
Well, I think it will. I think, number one thing we have to get a lot better at is giving up the big plays. You go back and look at, any game last year where, teams are scoring on big plays, whether it be we just, allow a guy to run free down the field. For example, Western Kentucky last year, they ran a tight end hop pass right across the middle. We have nobody around him. He goes maybe 70 yards for a touchdown. I mean, it's really, really easy for the offense. So we have to make the offenses earn yards, and if they do throw a deep ball, we hope it's a contested ball. And if they make the catch and they score on it, then, we'll have to live with that. But it's the kind of the ball of the games that we played and we just gave up the big plays and nobody's around, whether it be a mental error or somebody didn't line up correctly, or those are kind of things we got to get better at. I do think having it being in the system another year will help our guys with, like I mentioned earlier, with their experience. We'll be able to build off of what we did last year. I also think we got to do a better job of putting pressure on the quarterback. In games where we're able to make the quarterback move and have to get off his spot, and that helps us in the back end as well. But way too many big plays last year. I think that's where we got to get a lot better on defense in that regard.
What about the turnover situation?
Turnovers, meaning it.
Oh, I asked about the turnovers. You weren't able to create a lot of turnovers.
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah, I think that goes back to getting pressure on the quarterbacks. If your quarterback has to throw a little bit earlier than he would like to, that's where you can create those turnovers. And, we did not do a good job of getting back there and making him throw the ball earlier than he would want or move off of his spot in the pocket. If you're sitting back there and in the pocket and just, eating your lunch before you can throw it, that's not good. I mean, we've got to create, whether it be a 4 or 5 man rush or bring in more pressure in order to create the havoc on that quarterback, and that's when you throw balls into coverage when you don't want to. That's where we got to get better. That'll help us create those turnovers.
Hey, Scott, a few of the defensive guys were saying that obviously they're extremely motivated this year to prove that the defense can take a step forward, and last year isn't kind of who they are. In what ways have you seen that, seen kind of their motivation take a step forward this offseason?
Yeah, well, I mean, we took a step forward last year also. I mean, it was not very good. It was last in the ACC, but guys, I mean, it was 11 points better per game. I mean, that's incredible. If we get 11 points better per game this year, I mean, we're going to be one of the top 3 or 4 defenses in our league. So, we got a lot better. At times it didn't look like it. I know from your perspective and ours, but I think this year, I mean, again, it'll be. We hope there'll be a definite improvement there. We brought in a couple of new players we think can come out there and help on that side of the ball. That'll give us some more depth. I thought at times we got wore down in the second half, not having as much depth last year. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more depth this year. That'll help that out. We can rotate a few guys, but you still got to play on defense. You still have to play your best players because you'll get exposed, if you don't have your best players out there. But I really believe just having 2 years in the system, that's going to help. And that's, and then also you got to think the amount of production that's coming back on that side of the ball. I think 6 out of our top 7 tacklers are back, and you got to think they've gotten better. Obviously we won't know until we get out there and we start playing. But I believe that we've gotten better and not giving up the big play and also putting pressure on quarterbacks. I think that'll be the 2 things that hopefully we're better at.
Scott, you mentioned
Rick Bozich again. There are only going to be 12,000 fans there, so it's going to be different than obviously most season openers. Is that something you talk about with your players in terms of creating their own energy in the atmosphere, or are you just going to let it develop as it does?
Yeah, we've talked about it. We've talked about the atmospheres. As you look at our place, we're around 12,000, but you go to Pitt in a couple of weeks, then they're not going to have anybody. So it's certainly going to be different. We again, we have to focus on what we can control, and that's playing the best ball we can possibly play. We also talked about our guys on the sideline, the ones that are not playing. They have to be into the game and having a live sideline with a lot of hype, a lot of energy. You mentioned we're going to have to create our own energy within our team and just feed off of each other and feed off of the big plays that we make, and hopefully that'll enable us to make more plays. And I think it's certainly going to be different. There's no question. We all know that. We're in 2020, man. This whole year is different.
Scott, you mentioned the kicking game earlier, earlier about being a question mark. What have you decided on a kicker or a punter, or is that something that the competition continues this week and could continue throughout the year?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't decided yet. We're still working, all the way through this week, and we'll see what we do when we go out there. But I think as every position we have, we love the competition. We want to compete. It doesn't matter what position it's going to be. And, the kicking situation or the punting situation is no different. And this week we'll continue to work on it. We'll see what happens. And whoever we put out there, the other person that's behind them has to be ready as well, because they may get an opportunity also Saturday night, so you never know. You always have to be ready. And, you can't get ready on the night of the game. You have to mentally be ready before we kick this ball off.
Scott, it's Andrew Turnoff with WLKY Sports. Going off of Rick's question about the fans, does it feel like this year there's going to be less of a home field advantage at each game?
I think there's probably something to that, as you think about, a stadium is going to be packed out, but now this year there may not be any, or just a few thousand. That's going to be really, really different. I think about, we don't play Clemson, in the regular season this year, but if you think about going to Clemson to play, I mean, that's a very, very loud place. It's hard to concentrate. I've been in there a couple of times, and so now that place, remove those fans, it's going to be big time different. Now, is it an advantage or disadvantage? I don't know. I think probably noise, certainly. I think, you're still having to go there. So you're staying at a different hotel. You got a different locker room. The setup is kind of different. The atmosphere around you is still going to be different. So there's still maybe could be a little bit of a home field advantage. That remains to be seen. But I certainly think not having as big a crowds will certainly affect the game. No question about that. In a way that it won't be as much a home field advantage. And so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out this year, as we get to the end of the season, to see, if it did, in fact, not help the home team.
Hey, Scott, Cameron again. When you look at Justin Marshall, you see kind of the improvement he's made from where he was when you guys first got here. How much has he grown, and where do you see that improvement most, you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's understanding what we're doing better. He's always had talent. You know, he's a really big guy. He's strong. He's got good hands. He can run by DBs, but he also can catch the underneath route and break tackles. I mean, he's got a unique skill set in that regard. He's also a really good blocker for us. You know, when you get a guy with that kind of size that's out there on the edges blocking corners, I mean, he should be able to swallow up those corners and enable us to get some more yards. So I just think as just an overall, he's gotten a lot better and more comfortable, and his role has changed this year. And the fact that last year was kind of coming off the bench, I feel like this year, you know, he'll be, you know, the first one going out there and get a lot more playing time. So we feel like he'll be a great addition to that the wide receiver room. You know, with him getting more opportunities on the field, I'm excited. I'm ready to watch him play, and you know we got Fitz and Tutu out there as well, and then now you add him out there to the mix, and you know with Ford underneath, and then with our running backs, I mean it's a lot for a defense to have to handle. We feel like.
What kind of problems does Malone present? They're really good defensive linemen.
Oh, he's got tremendous quickness and speed. I think that's the first thing that stands out. I mean, but he also has length. You know, he's a 6'3", 6'4", has long arms, plays with great leverage. You know, he can run plays down from behind, but he's also quick enough that if you run at him, that he can avoid the block and get in the backfield. I mean, I think he maybe had 21 tackles for loss last year, 11.5 sacks. I mean, if you know, one-on-one, he feels like he can beat anybody that he goes against. And so he presents a lot of challenges. We'll be cognizant of where he is lined up, you know, because he's sometimes in the boundary, sometimes he's to the field. So we'll know where he's at according to what kind of plays we're trying to run, because he is that kind of player. I mean, he's a guy that's going to be playing at the next level for sure.
We'll take one more for Coach. Jody, I believe I heard you speaking up.
Scott, you mentioned the offensive line earlier, and Dwayne said, I think we talked to him last week, that he was pretty confident in the six. Do you feel confident in the six, and can you go any deeper than that here early in the season?
No, I feel really confident in our first six guys, and I think we feel like we can take another one or two guys, and if we had to take them in the game, we'd be fine with it. With the first six, we feel like really there's six starters. You know, quite honestly, I mean, any of those six could start for us, and they'll all play. I mean, we'll rotate those guys, and they'll be in the game, and so we feel good about that. You know, obviously, what we do scheme wise, we'll help our guys out when we need to, depending on what plays we call. But we feel really good about those six, and but I think more that we would love to get in there and get some playing time. We'll see how that goes. The game will dictate that.
All right, Coach, we'll wrap it up with that. Thanks for your time. Thanks, everybody, for being with us. Enjoy your holiday.
All right. Thank you, guys.